Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Astronomy. In this week's exploration of the solar system, we are going to talk about the Deep Space One spacecraft and see what it looked at in our solar system. So let's go ahead and get started, and here's an artist's conception of this. The Deep Space One was launched on October 24th of 1998. In a way, it was a demonstration spacecraft, kind of try out a few new things. And in fact, one of the main things was to test ion propulsion and to see how that would work in deep space. Now, it's a better way of being able to accelerate a craft as you can provide a continuous thrust and accelerate to a much higher speed much more efficiently. It also would fly by the asteroid 9969 Braille and the comet 19P Borrelly. So those are several of the things that it was going to try to do. Now, one of the big things that it was trying was looking at the ion propulsion. And here we can see the ion propulsion engine, which was a more efficient way to be able to travel than conventional chemical fuels. And it would then accelerate out material out of one end, and then, of course, that would propel the craft forward in accordance with Newton's third law of motion. Now, an ordinary ordinary engine will do that as well, but this is much more efficient and takes up less of the volume of the spacecraft to be able to do it. So you don't have to store as much fuel as you do in a traditional chemical engine. So that's one of the trials that was used, which seemed to work pretty well, and then was later used in the Dawn mission. Now, the Dawn mission visited two objects in the asteroid belt, the asteroid Vesta and the dwarf planet known as Ceres. Now, it also imaged an asteroid, and that was the asteroid 9969 Braille. And unfortunately, one of the images we can see here, very unfocused, and there was an issue with the software at the time. There was a software failure right before the encounter, and it was not able to get completely rectified in time, and therefore it was unable to focus the cameras properly. So we didn't get a proper flyby of this asteroid, but we can definitely see it there and see a little more structure, how it looks. In fact, it seems to be multiple pieces there, as many objects are, where they've stuck together over time. And then a little while later, it imaged the comet 19P Borrelly, and we can see an image of that if the issue had been rectified by then, and we can see images of the cometary nucleus. Now, trying to study the nucleus of a comet really helps us to understand what the comet is all about and what's happening there. So, for the longest time, we knew nothing of cometary nuclei. And now, starting with Halley's Comet, as we looked at in previous videos, now we're starting to look and to see some more of these cometary nuclei, and that will lead up to a really nice one, which is the Rosetta spacecraft, which actually orbited around the nucleus of a comet. Now, in 2001, December, then the engines were shut off and the spacecraft was put into a hibernation mode, but attempts the next year to try to contact it were unsuccessful, and it just continues out in its orbit around the sun, as it will do now forever. It'll just keep moving, as nothing further can be done with this craft. So that concludes this discussion on the Deep Space One spacecraft. Let's go ahead and finish up with our summary. And the Deep Space One was launched to study an asteroid and a comet, and really a test of ion propulsion in a spacecraft. It did fly by both the asteroid and comet before the engines were shut down in a successful mission. So that concludes this discussion of the Deep Space One spacecraft. We'll be back again next week for another exploration of the solar system video. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.